Welcome to Landscape Your Life. This is Mary Palmer Dargan, and I am experimenting with a brand new video that I've just presented to the Cincinnati Garden Club of America's Town and Country Garden Club, and it's about tricky places. These are sustainable landscapes designed to fit your lifestyle like a glove. And the important thing about this is that most of us are visual learners. And I thought by recording a video with this voiceover and dividing it into a series of podcasts, those of you who could just listen as I read into the slides would be able to visually learn from an audible kind of take. So otherwise, I'll give the link to the video on the show notes. So hang on to your hat. We're going to get started right now. First, what is a sustainable landscape? Well, this is a property that will not only sustain you to live your highest and best goals in life and be healthy, but it also is one where you've thought through where the materials come from. Are you using asphalt, which is a petroleum product, or are you using rocks and stones, which would allow for Mother Nature to rain down upon the earth and go between the stones and help cool the earth? Those are two big conceptual differences. And of course, it depends also on the context of the site. Are you on a steep slope or are you on a flat land? And then other sustainable landscape ideas are that you want to heal the earth. And if you've just built a house or if you're adding an addition, or if you just want to bring in nature to the back garden, you need a lot of plants. So you can certainly create this sustainable property to fit your lifestyle like a glove. So let's talk some more about that. I'm never more conscious of working with Mother Nature and the web of life than when a client entrusts his land to me, because the land, as you know, is very fragile, but it does heal itself. So I'm always looking for ways to rest lightly on the land and to produce the work that we're known for in a beautiful way that will be supportive of my client's lifestyle. So I wanted to share some of these ideas with you. The most fun in the world, of course, is to get a big picture from on high. And this is a beautiful gold certified quality LEED property in western North Carolina. It's called Ushuaia. And because of its perch way up high at 4,500 feet in its zone 5A, we had to be very conscious about what kind of plant materials were used, how the runoff was considered, and we didn't want to pollute the valley below or hurt the trout streams with any runoff from this construction project. So I'm just giving you an idea from this drone imagery about how beautiful and how far-reaching their views are, and why we think this is so important to hold hands with Mother Nature and work with sustainable properties, because they really do give back to you in spades, and we really want the monarchs to have places to do pollination and to fly to Mexico, and we want the birds and to be flocking there and dining, and we want to get our feet back on ground. So I thought you'd enjoy seeing that. I know each of us have action steps that we want to take to make our gardens fit our lifestyles like a glove. So let's talk about a couple of these. I know when I look at my property or my clients' properties from high above, I see many things that they might want to do. But nothing takes the place of having your own look at your garden terraces, making a list wherever you want seating areas. Get that wish list going. You can have fire pits, fire sculptures, outdoor dining. Look toward having natural water bodies. I'm always so amazed at what shows up in breeds in them, and it's good for the nature and beautiful. So don't forget sculpture and art and those compost areas. So make your wish list, and this might help you get started with making your lifestyle fit with your garden. But of course, how do we do this? We've discussed the importance of sustainability, and nothing drives the point home further than when I'm called after a natural disaster. Recently, I was down in Sea Island, Georgia, where a client's home had been absolutely brutalized by winds and trees that fell and the water of 3 feet covering their property. In fact, it covered the island in a sheet 3 feet deep. And it's a very beautiful place. So they lost several live oaks, and the landscape contractor couldn't even bear to give the pictures to the owner, and so I took a picture of his picture just to bring the point home. This one has a wonderful swimming pool, which is right there on the marsh. And if you can just visualize the fact that the marsh would fill up with water that would come over the seawall, and then this beautiful rectilinear pool would have porpoises dancing in it. Well, maybe not porpoises, but it certainly had uh, uh, lots of fish and lots of junk. So the next slide is showing us some big live oaks beautifully framing the house, which of course one was lost in the storm. So there's always a big hole in the landscape left, and it has to take a lot to take the roots out. And oh, it just always breaks my heart. I feel like a circuit rider, trying to minister to my public. So the next slide is one from Hurricane Hugo. This was back in 1989, and Hugh Dargan and I, my husband and partner in design and crime, a life partner, were invited to come to Medway, which is an unbelievable plantation. I think it dates to 1680, dripping with moss, Spanish moss from the trees, live oaks lining the big drives. It's an Audubon natural habitat preserve. And we got there, and the main garden range had a big tree tump over on top of it. It was a huge live oak. They had to use a helicopter to lift it off. And so we asked them if they had any drawings. And this is why I think drawings are so important for you all to think about, because they didn't have any drawings of what the building actually looked like, nor did they have a way of giving us photographs. So we researched in books, and we found what it sort of once looked like. And it's a fairly major property. So there's a before and after here, and the backdrop really is quite pretty. And it has a stepped roof, and the house of Medway actually has a Dutch roof, which is extremely attractive. It's sort of a pink colored building, and we used brick on this restoration of their existing greenhouse facade. We added a kitchen garden because they wanted to grow good food for the folks that worked there. So it was a whole garden makeover. And so it gives you the opportunity to look at your property with new eyes. Well, all that said, let's take a little breather, because I want you to know that it takes a lot of imagination and thought, and it's a wonderfully fun process to go through to be able to design your property so that it really fits your lifestyle. And often when I'm going on my trips abroad, especially to England, since I'm such an Anglophile, and this is a picture of Great Dixter on the two sets of stone steps with great lichen adhering to them, and they're round, and it looks like maybe you could set up a quartet to play on a grassy overlook. It's very small, it's very domestically scaled, if you can have something like that on your property. And I'm just sort of wondering how they built that and how I would draw it. And so often when I go to these places, I get out my handy measuring stick and I just measure them. So this is a tool that you could use when you see something you want to model. And just as an introduction to Hugh Dargan and to me, you don't probably know us very well, but we've been married, gosh, we got married back in 85, and we're both landscape architects licensed. And he's from South Carolina, I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. And we are so happy with our new puppy named Henry, little Henry. And he's a little hunting dog. He's a Boykin Spaniel, which is the state dog of South Carolina. So that is our late in life soccer child, and we're having the best time with him. So that's a picture of the two of us plus Henry hiking. We lived in a fabulous, fabulous place called High Coat, and that is in High Hampton in Cashiers, North Carolina, which is about an hour south of the Great Smoky Mountains National Park. And we've been coming here for, probably about 28 years, and several years into that process, we bought this property. And for 16 or 17 years, we just loved it. It had a big lake. It had an extremely humble house, which I'll share with you at the end of these few pictures. People are always asking us when we talk about our garden at High Coat what it looked like, so I thought I'd take you through a little narrative tour. Keep in mind we don't own it anymore because Hugh and I were out washing the car, and 5 horribly venomous yellow jackets came out from a hole in the ground, and this was Labor Day, and stung Hugh Dargan repeatedly. And he told me he needed to go sit in the car and please take him to the hospital. I said, oh, sure, honey, when I finish walking in the car. Ha, ha, ha. Well, he did get in the car and he did pass out. So I drove him directly to the help at High Hampton, and he stayed in anaphylactic shock for almost an hour. This was a life-changing event for us because 3 weeks later, he had a small stroke. And I'm sharing this with you because it really was a big life change for us. And we thought through, how to live, and he's very functional. I mean, he can do anything, just about. But he was almost ready to retire, and it seemed like maybe we could just come to a less stressful environment, like Cashiers, North Carolina, where we already had a home and business base, and enjoy the healing qualities of nature around us. And it did help when I was driving to the hospital following the ambulance for someone to call me on the telephone and say, hey, by the way, would you ever be interested in selling your property? And let me tell you, when God speaks to you, you act. So we did sell it. And we've enjoyed going back there to look at how it's maturing. So in the photographs, just to let you know what we have, there's a beautiful pavilion we built called the Pavilion of the Five Sounds. We had a little waterfall next to it, a beautiful pond where everything came to live, including spotted purple salamanders. They have yellow spots and one orange one on its back. It's just the prettiest thing in the world. They breed there. And we just put a little 16-foot liner down in the ground, filled it up with water, put some rocks around it, and voila, we had a living, breathing pond. So that's a technique you too can use. And we used all sustainable lumber for the small pavilion and built a kitchen within it and a wine bar so that we could cook cast iron and have a pizza oven. And we used very nicely, we farmed the timber from our property and used black locust and recycled lumber from a pine tree we cut down. My next picture includes a tip for you about how to have some inexpensive lattice work because the Dargans really cannot afford themselves in our designs. So what we like to do is actually have our beautiful work area, which is our office, look like it fits our lifestyle like a glove. So we have not only a green grass roof growing on the top, it was actually a green roof that succeeded on into blackberries, goldenrod, and who knows what now. We even had roof irises. And the tall doors were custom made from a company called Brattle Works, Brattle-Works. And I highly recommend that you check this place out. We love it. The gravel on the ground is brown rubbed rock, which is a sustainable material we use for our work. The next one is the view back to the pavilion where our office was, and it's through the kitchen garden, which has these really, really pretty wooden structures made of hickory, and we ran our beans up it as well as our tomatoes. And in it we have lots of little tomatoes, obviously, and then we like the beans, and it's a very pretty thing with Kingsville boxwood, and variegated boxwood is the edging at the corners as balls, and it's a 4-part master plan kitchen garden look. When I turned 50, which was about 13 years ago, I asked Hugh Dargan if I could please have a Red Hot Mama garden. And he said, why, of course, honey, I'd love for you to have a Red Hot Mama garden. If you create it, build it, pay for it, and design it, I will maintain it in perpetuity. So what I did, I took him up on that offer, and it has stepping stones next to grass along the stone border, and some crocosmias for that Red Hot Mama pop, and monarda, the red bee balm, and then he added a lot of really quite beautiful tetraploid daylilies, which we dearly love, and then sedums and things that would just keep on blooming sort of effortlessly through the summer. This property is down at 3,500 feet, and in it are things like Nepeta, the wonderful catmint, which cascades over the border and makes a foamy blue look. And we added a little bird bath to it made out of stone so that we would attract the birds, and it overlooks the lake. Because we like to put our money where our mouth is, we also wanted to make our driveway, which goes through a beautiful arching rhododendron thicket, to look absolutely yummy. And what we did was put some big stones at the road and put the brown gravel that we like so much. It's flat ground gravel. It's called Squirrel Mountain Gravel, and it's sold by Toxaway Concrete. And it's a byproduct of dredging rivers, so it is sustainable. It comes from not so far away. High Coat is a sort of a basically homely house, but it was something we added dormers to and some, oh, how would you say, touches of that expensive tulip poplar siding, so it would have that earthy look. And it's painted a medium, we call it Forest Ranger green. And years ago, I was the inaugural chair of a thing called the Plein Air Festival here in Cashers, which is every other year, and it's held to benefit the village green. And it was much to my surprise, I went by the house one day to see how it was doing, and there were 4 plein air painters, and they're in this painting, this picture, doing some artwork in the garden, and I was never more proud and happy and honored that they liked what we'd done, because the next picture shows that originally the house was just looked like a trailer, and it had no dormers. It was a flat roof. It was ugly. The color was horrible. It was all mildewed and dreadful, and it had a carpet that was held up with big pipes. It was just horribly homely. So we worked our love and care on that for 16 or 17 years. And there's one more picture here showing it before the circular drive was even in. And we cut down all the pine trees because they had pine beetle. And we added lots and lots of square footage to the house over time. So, take a silk purse or take that sow's ear and put it into a silk purse. So we moved to a darling place called Dovecote, and Dovecote is a historic cottage built in, the other one was built in 1948, by the way, and the lake was built for it. And it's at High Hampton, which is a private country club with a public golf course in High Hampton, in Cashers. The other one is closer to the village, and it has a lot fewer bedrooms and bathrooms to take care of, and we just love our little Dovecote. A friend told us we should buy it. We looked at it and bought it on the spot. Didn't even ask questions. But we have a white picket fence around it that we added. We've added a garden that makes sense. It has stepping stones with hostas and a sculpture fountain by Peveril, who's one of my absolute favorites of all times. And then we have a pavilion next to it, which is where we host our Garden Talk Salon and have a 3-month seasonal shop. We're really landscape architects, but people think that we have a shop, so they come over anyway. And there's a restaurant next door, so we just went with the flow. And I really like the little pavilion. And once again, we used reclaimed lumber and had it milled. And, it's pretty adorable. Come see us. The best thing, though, is that we do have these teaching gardens, and we have a small courtyard that illustrates line, color, form, and texture, things we learned about in Cashers, North Carolina, long, long ago. And then we also have a pretty little alley of framed portraits of some of our favorite gardens, which we call the English Walk. But the best part, really, I think, are the teaching gardens that we use for the organic items that we pickle and brew. So it is never more fun than to have 6 raised garden beds that are 4 by 8. And we use 2 by 4s to build these. And the usefulness of them is that they're about 2 feet tall, and I can lean over and not hurt my back. So they're full of all kinds of wild and woolly things that I like to grow, like nettle. And I like nepido because I think it does keep the bugs and chipmunks out. Horseradish, I adore. Golden elderflower, I like for its flowers and berries. And then we always have a lot of kale and Swiss chard. So we painted the boards on the boxes a pale watery green that looks kind of like bottle green. I think it's quite chic. And we do recycle everything and make our, our compost area is quite productive, to say the least. Because we have 3 months of doing things, ooh, wow, listen to that. I love having a bird visit me. We have this wonderful windfall of sorts of a land we released next door. If you can imagine just a beautiful old barn that happened to be just sitting there full of bats, and it's still full of bats, but the side drive-through areas where you park farm equipment are not. So we turned one of them into a lecture studio and the other one into sort of an exhibit overflow space. And one of the things we did this summer that was really fun, it was sold out, was a floral design workshop. And we had the wonderful Shanna Fisher do quite a bit of floral design, to say the least, and everybody listened in rapt attention at the Garden Talk Salon in our Nature's Kitchen. Under the light bulbs, we have pretty French, hanging light bulbs. It's a very old building with cast iron pots and pans and kettles hanging from the ceiling. And everybody has a great time because at the floral workshops we give you a container, it's a small fee, and you fill it up with flowers and you get to do your own thing and take it home. So it's great fun and people bond. I just love it. Then we also have Mr. Carl Peveril, who is an artist extraordinaire as a ceramic artist, and well known for that for many decades of his life. And he turned his hand to sculpting stone, natural rocks, and pulling the best out of individual rocks, their texture, shape, size, and largeness, the planes of the faces of the rocks and their colors, and puts them together in extremely natural looks. So if you can't see the picture and you're on the podcast, I want you to know that we have them arranged, he does this, into something we call contemporary Stonehenge. So it has everything from a bench to whimsical sculptures. They're all really over 6 feet tall, some up to 12 feet. And he does it by hand, erecting them. They're stable. They're all beaded and wired together with rebars. And I like every single one of them. And they go to good homes. And we just think they're works of art. And it's a real gift and honor to be working with Carl Peveril. We love him. So his things are there year-round in the sculpture garden in the meadow next to Dovecote, which is next to Cornucopia Restaurant on Highway 107 in Cashers. But really the best thing that we come up with when we're working with properties, and the reason why both Dovecote and Highcote work so well, is I think that we were able to tap into their genius loci, which is the spirit of the place. Because where there was absolutely nothing, just blank grass, some old trees that had, horrible bugs attacking them, we were able to create beautiful gardens that fit our lifestyle like a glove in 2 instances in the past 2 decades. So I believe that if you think through what it is that you want to achieve, have it in your mind, set goals, wish lists, and plant a lot of green and breathing plant materials of all types, from ground covers to ephemerals up to the trees to block bad views or shade your house, you will create, at least help welcome the genius loci, which is the spirit of the place, into your property. In Delphi, which is my favorite place in the world, I believe, to get inspiration, as it did for the wise men of many, many millennia, this is in Greece, and it's where the oracle spoke. And whenever you walk onto this property or see a picture of it, it has circular steps, lots of stone, beautiful, amazing fragments of old buildings and columns and inspirational mountains framing it in the background. And it was from 510 to 323 BC that it was really known as having a spirit of place. You could talk to the spirit. And I kind of got a download while I was there, like, I had someone say, look and listen to your heart. And I thought, gosh, that's really amazing, because it was snowing sideways. And I don't know where that voice came from, but I did get the idea that I should always listen to my heart. And so I'm passionate about my work as a result, and love life. That is about the best we can all be, isn't it? So also, when you're dealing with spirit of place, it can apply to not only the property itself, but courtyards from within. And in this little illustration, it's a tiny courtyard that's only about 12 feet wide and 12 feet deep. And it's just big enough for a single little chair and 2 little boxwoods, 2 skinny pots that are about 22 inches tall and maybe 13 inches in diameter, and opia pogon in the ground plane, and the chair sitting on its tippy toes on little gray stones, slabs of bluestone. And it has a spirit of place. It's amazing, just those elements. And the walls are painted a kind of inspirational, stuccoed, shall we say, salmon, but it's not quite salmon. It's salmony pink and has a little bit of coral stone. It's down in Sea Island and one of my favorite small gardens ever. But you feel like you're in a special private place when you're in there, and indeed you are. And how do we do all of these things? How do you find the spirit of place? It is certainly not something that any of us have had much experience with. And as a landscape architect, working hard, I realized that plans can be quite mysterious, and the sequencing of how to do things so you don't get it backwards instead of forwards is quite challenging to most people. So I think we ought to talk about the mind, body, and spirit and how it affects your concept of your land. When I was struggling with my last book, Lifelong Landscape Design, I went out and walked up the road to the golf course top. This is before we moved from High Hampton. And I was trying to think of how to describe in a picture to my public, to my readers, what mind, body, and spirit meant to a landscape architect, to me, when I'm working with my land and others. So if you think, oh, and so what happened, this was where the voice came. A leaf fell from the tree. I picked it up, and it was a tilia, which is a really nice little tree that's native. And it has a heart-shaped leaf that's about the size of my hand. I picked it up and looked at it, and the heart part was down at the bottom. And I thought, well, how interesting. And I heard this voice that said, it's the body of the house that revolves and impacts the work on the land. I went, what? They said, the land is the mind of the property. The land listens to the air, it feels the air, it drinks the water, it has the earth, it has the insects, it feels the sun. It is part of the web of life. But the body is planted on the land, the body of the house. And the house has tentacles that reach across the land. They go through channels that we beavered away. And those are for water lines, or they might be tapping into a well, or they might be for electric underground. They might be running electric above ground in the air, or they might have any kind of thing coming out from it, like a septic system or sewer pipes. And so those things hurt the land. And it's, I think, our as stewards, as the voice would say, you're the steward of your land. And so the spirit of a place is when the body and the land come together and they function as a whole and they're in harmony. So repair the brutalization you do to your property and love it and hold hands with Mother Nature. That's my take on what the voice said to me. And in the picture, it's useful. I'll post this one on the show notes too. Well, when we lived in Charleston, South Carolina, we had the opportunity to, take the spirit of place to new dimensions or dementias. Sometime we have a before and after series here of 55 Church Street. And it shows a picture of laying out this garden, which is in a trapezoidal shaped property. And so the little bricks are on top of the ground. And the reason why it's so bare is because when we first went to see it, it was all covered, sealed off, encapsulated with an aggregate paving. And the aggregate was god awful. And we just thought they were trying to play a big joke on us. They wanted a basketball goal or something. But actually, they wanted to really go a fabulous garden. And so we did a 4-part master plan, a historic, not a 4-part master plan, a 4-part garden with a circle in the middle and 4 little beds, little paths, and then 2 precious privy buildings at the back. And could straighten out the trapezoidal problem with that by creating a fake wall to square off the shape. Then, if you can see, imagine in your mind, we covered it up with plants, and it is absolutely looks like it is from the 18th century. The old bricks are 6 by 8 or 9 inches and 3 or 5 inches thick. They're big old bricks, and we used a brownstone lintel from the house to have a step from the courtyard into this magical place. And it has marl, which is a type of crushed oyster shell, which is found locally as a dredge byproduct from the creeks. And the dredging is a nice, sustainable way to reuse things. But if you want to use it, you could get builder's sand, which is brown, and get the crushed oyster shell from your local feed and seed because people feed it to chickens. And it comes in different grades, but you want the grade that's larger, that's maybe the size of your thumbnail and your fingernails. So we have Kingsville boxwood and bumps of box in a little centerpiece of a pretty sundial, and then the backdrop is covered with some Hume hollies, and the little outbuildings just peep out. And of course, historically, ancient um, camellias are in this garden as well. And they have a courtyard adjacent to this, which she wanted to just keep the genius of Genius Loci going throughout the whole property, and because it is an 1818 building. So we were able, with little fishing wire monofilaments and a little bitty tack nails, able to put up on the pink stucco kitchen house a little bit of wire background so that the Trachlospermum floridanum, which is the Madison variety, it's a double flowering Confederate jasmine, fragrant, fabulous, blooms in I think mid-April, keeps blooming for quite a while, could grow up, and today it is covered with this beautiful white flower in its moment of glory, and the kitchen house is seamless with the garden. Then another sort of one of these unbelievable projects that we are so fortunate to share and have clients honor us with is one that, if you can imagine, if you can't see it because you're in a podcast, that there is a wall of mud, and it's just where a track hoe is dug out, 28 feet or 30 feet high, of like sliding slope that's coming into the back of this house. We did not site this house, but we were asked to come and fix it. We're always being asked to fix things. So we thought about what would help Mother Nature and decided to use a skillful technique, which involved using huge logs of recycled rocks, which came from Elberton Quarry, which are made of granite. And they're like graveyard stones that were not used in the production of gravestones. And so they're really big, 12 feet by 6 feet tall, 3 feet wide, etc. So we made kind of a pattern out of those, and we're able to have a nice track hoe that could lift them into place. But the result is that we were able to do an articulated backdrop that gives animation to the site. And the water weeps through the wall naturally and sustainably. And I tell you what, I think it was within 3 to 4 weeks that there was a little aster blooming between the cracks of the stone, and that a bird had nested in a small vine that we had just set against the wall on that wall. Isn't that amazing? So this is one of my favorite places, and there's another before and after so you can see exactly how incredibly tall this is. And we did step the wall down, but you can't tell from when you're in the courtyard. The courtyard's only 24 feet by 24 feet. And the following illustration shows how narrow it is. And we added grass and a curvilinear walk through grass to give it a change of texture, and then a small paved area. And there's a wonderful waterfall built into the wall. So at this point, I'm going to introduce you to what will be coming up in the next series of lectures on this topic, and it involves timeless landscape design. So with that, I'm going to let you know that this will be covering the 4-part master plan, and we'll walk through those steps on how to do that sustainably and how to help make your landscape fit your garden. Oh, excuse me, how about this? How to make your landscape fit your lifestyle like a glove. Thank you so much for being with me at this lecture. This is Mary Palmer Dargan, and I encourage you to heal the earth one garden at a time and let nature's arms wrap around you.